Hello, everyone, and welcome to Sonic Comic Chaos. I'm your host, Silver1. Joining me, as always, my co-host, Ian Waffles. Ian, say hi.
Hello.
And we're back, folks. It's been a hot minute since, we're doing our good old pre-boot stuff, but we're back with none other than our favorite Green Snot, as Ian referred to him off mic. Ian, wait, is this called Dark Mirror?
I think so. I just call it the King Scourge arc.
Well, my brain got Dark Mirror and Darkest Storm mixed up, and I was like, Darkest Mirror? No, that's not right. So Dark Mirror.
Yeah, Dark Mirror.
But before we hop into it, Ian, we're recording this the day after the Sonic Twitter takeover. Did you happen to catch any of those?
No, but I heard a few choice things about them.
Yeah. There was one. Well, there were a couple things. They did My Girl Elise pretty dirty with one of the answers, but there was a pretty consistent through line throughout it. You want to guess what that through line was, Ian?
Was it Shad Amy?
Yeah.
How so?
Well, they mentioned that after the first concert, they repeatedly go to others afterwards.
Awesome.
They make mention of the fact that Shadow just lets Amy drag him around on shopping trips. And they have people might have missed this, but I'm good at reading between the lines when it comes to these things. There was a question about what they would do if they swapped bodies with one another. And mysteriously, Shadow said if he swapped bodies with Sonic, the first thing he'd have Sonic do is tell Amy that he's stupid. So that's it. Shadow seems like the petty kind of romantic rival. So I'm just saying, you've doubted me in the past, Ian, but this is some pretty concrete proof I'm laying out.
I was going to say that they're really giving you everything you want this year. For Sonic.
I know.
I don't know what you did or like what the cost is, but for now, enjoy it.
Look, the soul of my firstborn is down in hell somewhere, but it was a small price to pay.
But at least it's with Spider-Man's kid, so.
Yep. They also
people are like, what?
Yeah. People, trust me. You don't read the Spider-Man comics. Just read Ultimate Spider-Man. It's good. But they also had a question about Silver that was really cute. Where they were like, "Oh, he's like our little brother," which I appreciated. Hopefully
That's
that
nice.
is hopefully Satan can give me one more thing I want before year's end, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, a little tangent aside, we need to get into nice read your comments. It's been a minute. But
it has been.
we got a couple good ones here. So from Spinball Productions 9678 on the journal episode that we did. Really fun to read through. I personally got the physical version of the game because I thought it wouldn't be in the game. Also kind of disappointed it's a pamphlet, not an actual book. By the way,
that sucks.
Yeah, it's not great. But by the way, at 53:52, it says 12/04/20.03, December 4th, 2003 is the Japanese release day of Sonic Battle, which makes sense because Emerald. Great video as always. Cool. Well, thank you, Spinball. That's very nice.
Thank you.
And then one comment that just sparked some intrigue in me, which is from Hold My Apple Juice. On the Dark Beginnings episode, they said, I had this on in the background while I was extracting the files from Shadow the Hedgehog. I had some enjoyment. I find that, by the way, I'm part alien, part funny. I was giggling to myself. Well, glad you enjoyed that. Why were you extracting the files from Shadow the Hedgehog? Comment down below. I'm curious.
Yeah.
And then one last question, because I think this one will take up a good amount of time. Hey, so I was wondering, when you guys read Archie Sonic, what voices do you hear for the characters? And also, if you had to pick voice actors for some of the comic-only characters, who'd you pick? For me, aside from Amy and Tails, who I just hear the 4 kids' voices, I usually hear the Dreamcast era voices from the game characters, plus Scourge, and the Freedom Fighters with their pilot voices. And for some voiceless characters, I hear Keith David as Man with Mogul, Steve Bloom as Dr. Finitevis, and Rob Paulson, a TMNT actor, as Tommy Turtle, and Mighty. I'd really like to hear answers from each of you. I'm really curious. Sorry if this is too long. No, you're good. Did I read the name? JES1001. Yeah. So, Ian, you got any strong opinions on those? Because I do.
I mean, obviously, for Sonic, I just kind of go with whatever whoever was the voice at the time, more or less. Except I would say like I never jumped to Roger for pre-boot or reboot. I kind of just stick with Jason as soon as I get to kind of like the Flynn era. And then for Robotnik, you know, obviously I switch between, I guess. So I'm not really good at like picking like, oh, here's like a specific voice actor I would want to do. So I would pretty much agree with everything you said. And again, I just kind of go with the as like whatever the time period was. My one specific thing that I do every time I read is whenever we get to Robotnik and he's finally got his sanity back, and there's a whole scene where he's kind of like manipulating Snively, and he's like, "Hello, Snively, I figured it all out." I like that creepy image of Robotnik with his eyes being red like the original version. I always read that scene with the original Jim Cummings voice through the Eggman voice actor, because I just always imagine that scene if it were like a show or a movie. Like the whole idea is like Robotnik is back, and this is kind of Snively's worst nightmare. So I really like the idea that in that one scene, just for no reason, he has his original scary Jim Cummings voice to be like, I am back. And that's always kind of how and then like by the end of the scene, it would turn back into like Mike Pollock voice acting. So that's just kind of what my specific one. Otherwise, I don't really have anything too interesting for it.
Yeah, for me, for most of the characters, it's their 4 kids' voices, with a few exceptions. For Eggman, it's always Jim Cummings. For Tails, it usually is kind of more of like a more modern, like Kate Higgins, or who's the lady who voices? Oh, Colleen O'Shaughnessy. It's probably closer to that range. Or sometimes if he's being a bit more of like a kid, it's probably more of like the Dreamcast era. And then for the SatAM characters, it's mostly just their SatAM like season 1 voices, or at least
exactly,
my recollection. Same. Yeah, my recollection of them from having not watched that show in a bit. I'm trying to think for for Rouge, I would say it's probably because I don't dislike her 4 kids voice. I just it's not the one I go to. It's probably her Dreamcast voice I go with. And then just for some interesting ones for comic only characters, for Mogul, I usually go with like Michael Clark Duncan, like his Kingpin voice, just because he's very Kingpin like in the comic, so it makes sense. For Finitavis, it's like who's the motherfucker who voices Scar? What's his name? Jeremy
Jason
Irons.
Isaacs.
What?
Jason Isaacs.
That's his name? I thought it was Jeremy Irons.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Who's Jason Isaacs?
That's the guy who plays Zhao. I'm stupid.
For Scourge, it's just the Werehog voice for Scourge. I'm trying to think. Who are some other characters that you mentioned? I'm gonna kick myself as soon as we move on, because I had like a bunch. I guess if I can throw some IDW characters in there. For Finitavis, not Finitavis. Fuck, Starlin. So I grew up with a sister who watched Mickey Mouse Clubhouse. So for Starlin, I always hear him as like the like German scientist duck from that show. Tangle is whoever voices Mabel in Gravity Falls. I just hear Tangle as Mabel, more or less.
Oh, I like that.
Whisper, I don't really have a set voice for her. It's just kind of like generic, like whispery, kind of deeper female voice.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, and then fuck, I don't know. I thought I had more interesting answers for this, but one last one. Elias. I always hear him as in the Ultimate Spider-Man cartoon, Loki had like a very proper, you know, like kind of British, but kind of like just kind of like an asshole like voice. I always hear him like that for some reason, even though that's so like not Elias's character.
Well, maybe just like the sound of it anyway. Maybe not the intonation there. Yeah,
kind of like more of like a regal. Yeah, but that's I haven't pulled up the comic. God damn it! Gotta go to my long box of comic books that I actually do own this one physically. It's just back at my old place, but jeez. All right. Ian, stall. Keep the audience entertained.
Yeah. I mean, also, I would say with like Monkey Con, it's kind of funny. I basically just give him Silver's voice, and I just kind of do the same for him. So they kind of like overlap in my mind when I'm listening to it.
Really? That's interesting. I would never have given him Silver's voice. Although
it's a weird choice, but every time like, and it's not even like I thought of it that way until like I sat back and I was like kind of reading everything back to back to back, and I was like, oh, I kind of just give them the same voice.
For me, I have that same thing, but with Mighty, kind of. I hear Silver as Pete Capella, and I hear Mighty as Quentin Flynn.
Okay.
Yeah, because I feel like that voice fits Mighty pretty well. And all again, Mighty's never had a voice, so. But yeah, I have the comic pulled up, so thank you for stalling. But yeah, let's just hippity hop into Dark Mirror with Archie Sonic the Hedgehog number
Have you found your
180. What?
Have you found your comics?
Yes, yes. I said I did.
Oh, oopsies.
Ian. Archie Sonic the Hedgehog number 189. We start with a really cool page. So basically, the star posts that they used to get into the special zone, they just turned on by themselves. And then we see a really cool like bottom half of the page that has all the characters standing back to back with their anti-Moebius selves, with the exception of Bunny, who her anti-Moebius counterpart is mysteriously missing.
Yes.
Hmm.
I wonder what that could mean.
I don't know. But anyway, it works out though, because they have Fiona to fill in her place. Otherwise, there'd be like one extra on the evil side. Yeah. Then who comes through the portal? But Boomer, and you audience, you silly billies, might be thinking, well, but isn't Boomer Rotor just like his old name? No.
Do not read the issues.
Yeah. It's evil Rotor, but now he's got like robot parts. He looks pretty cool. He walks through cool. He walks through. He blasts Rotor, and then Anti-Tails comes through, or should we call him Miles? Which it's interesting. Later on, they're like, yeah, Scourge forced us all to change their names, but like he seems pretty into like this characterization. He seems like he would just want to be called Miles. Like that seems like more his deal.
It seems like he told him like, yeah, pick a name. We're not anti anymore, and then he's like, fine. And they probably like all like what they chose, I guess, if that makes sense. Like they were forced to do it, but they got to pick.
Yeah. And then Alicia comes through, and then finally they're like, oh well, but Her Highness needs to come through. And who is that other than Fiona? So what's going on? What is this? This is what? And then we get over to New Megapolis, where if you might recall, dear listeners, that New Megapolis got fucked
Indeed.
What, like a couple arcs ago when Enerjack like nuked it.
Yes.
And so they're going in to do something. What are they doing?
So basically they're taking out one of Eggman's like few like network towers that he's established, so he can like contact the rest of the world like for backup or yes. So they're just destroying that basically.
Okay. Yeah. And
it's also like an outpost for the Dark Legion, so it like pushes them back into the city. Yeah,
they're fighting. They're going up against the Dark Legion. They're fighting them. And Sonic's like, oh yeah, geez, these guys suck. But like Knuckles, you don't seem very happy about this. He's like, oh. Which is kind of Knuckles throughout a lot of this. Is just him being sad. But it's good. And he leads to some interesting character bits. We'll get to that. Yeah, and they're like, yeah, Knuckles is like, all right, well, we gotta, get in there. Meanwhile, we cut back to Freedom HQ. This is there's a lot of back and forth in these issues. It's very much kind of the Hideaki Anno school of editing, as I call it, where it's just like, now we're here.
Yeah, it's just trying to just keep the action flowing from one to the other.
Which is good. It goes it's snappy. Yeah, so I don't.
Well, the way I view it, and this is kind of similar when we get to the two issues after this, because these kind of come in two-parters. So it seems like what Flynn was going for is that Sonic stuff and what he's dealing with is kind of like setting up everything for Scourge and kind of, setting up some action and a few things here and there. But there's not really like a heart to it because it's a lot of it focused on the villains. So he uses Knuckles as the recurring emotional center for each of these storylines, because while our heroes are just kind of fighting dudes, Knuckles is dealing with his stuff and kind of coming to different conclusions, which I think was pretty smart. So,
yeah, that does make sense. I like that. You're smart, Ian.
Yeah, I've made a few hog videos in my time.
Hog videos. I don't like how that sounds. But yeah, then we come back to Freedom HQ, where Amy is like, "Oh, hey, Patch, you want to fucking die?" And there's
by the way, I need to point out, So this has been consistent for a while, but every time Amy hits something with her hammer, it leaves a heart-shaped dust cloud.
Oh, it's adorable.
Yeah. Do
I
you see
love
that in the wall?
Yeah, I see it. That's great.
It's so fun. And
Yeah.
also her pose, like her like little leg stretched out or whatever, she looks so cool.
Oh yeah, she looks awesome. Yeah, Amy's done pretty well throughout this whole bit. And yeah, so Patch goes running from Amy, and there's a great bit where Bunny, where like there's like we hear him like get hit off screen, and Bunny goes, "Hey, save some of him for the rest of us."
Yeah.
I would love if there was just a scene where it's just like all of them just kicking the shit out of Patch for all the shit he put them all through.
Oh yeah.
Like, jeez. Yeah, but they basically, it's just them trading like blow for blow. Like, you know, Boomer hits Bunny and Sally hits Alicia, who's her evil doppelganger, and then, you know, Antoine goes to fight Fiona. It's a whole thing.
Antoine puts a sword at Fiona, and Fiona goes, "All right, I'll use my sword, my finger, tap tap." And I'm like,
yeah. Well, it's what she's like. What is this comic rated?
Which
like,
makes her look so cool.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, I know.
And,
whatever. And he's like, "Do you know what comic we're in? You can only kill people off screen, and you're a good guy."
Yeah. Who will be killed off screen?
Oh no.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah, but then we cut back to them fighting the Dark Legion, where Mighty just fucking throws a dude.
Yeah, that guy's gone.
Yeah, like if this were a cartoon, he would go into the sky and there'd be like a little like ding, like.
Oh yeah, he'd also definitely be making the Wilhelm scream.
I love that.
Oh, by the way, I don't know if you've been paying attention. Mighty in the background of like a lot of the story is just wrecking people. So like in like at the start or whatever, he's just like leaping over at people. And then like in that one, he tosses that guy away, and then later he like rips off an entire arm and he just walks over really happy, like he's just chilling.
He rips off someone's arm.
He rips off the robot arm when they fight.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then Knuckles is like, "Look, Leonda," because Leonda's there, and she's like, but so she's like, "Look, man, can we just stop fighting?" And she's like, "No, Snively, like, give me reinforcements." And Snively's like, "No."
He's like, "You guys are the only thing we have, bro. What part of 99% of everything we got destroyed, and we had to side with you idiots? Did you not understand?"
And she's like, everything. I didn't understand any of that, but okay.
I didn't know any of that. You hired my uncle first.
Yeah. But yeah, so she's like, "Well, I guess we're leaving then." And so,
well, yeah, and it's a sucky moment too, because the whole idea is that like he's like, "Why can't we just work together?" And then it's like, "All right, Snively, send me things to kill Knuckles with." It's like, there is nothing. You have to kill Knuckles. And then Knuckles like, "See, we could just like do it now." And she's like, "Fuck you." She leaves.
Yeah. But yeah, and Sonic's like, "Hey, we'll get him," and like, yeah, whatever. Let's go break the shit. And we see that the kids were actually in charge of breaking the shit. And they're in this. Actually, really, now that I'm looking at it, I really like the design of this room.
Yeah,
it's got like cool the weird like Ben 10 texture up on top. It's like like it looks neat. But yeah, Saffron, Charmy, and Ray are like setting the bombs. Which, do you want to give Charmy the bomb job? I don't know if that's.
Well, he can fly, and they sent his wife to babysit him, so it's fine.
I guess, but and the Dark Legion is all retreating back to the base that they're putting the bombs on. So they're like, "Oh fuck." Also, fun little detail when Boomer shoots his like sonic cannon, the onomatopoeia has like the boom in it.
It says boom. Yeah. There's so many good paneling in this one. Like, this is where I really start to appreciate like really kind of being creative with a lot of stuff. Because like, for example, this page, the way it comes down, the panels are slanted to give you the feeling of like them sliding around the corner. Then when they come in, they're, it's again them like kind of circling the scene, like they're getting closer to you. And then it cuts to Boomer, who it almost looks like he is in front of them, like being like, "I'm going to block you," because that's how it feels to us. But he's actually behind them. But like through the visual storytelling of the panel of like the door, it really like sells that like, oh, he's going to be in their way. It's really cool. And then once you flip the page again, then he's pushed back out. So it's awesome.
Yeah, it's fun. And it really sells like the motion of it too. Like when Sally like runs and slides under the swords. That panel in particular I just really like.
Because when she slides under the swords, she's not in a panel. It's part of like the white space. So it's like again, they're just such smart paneling, because what that does is it makes it tell you like, no, this panel's really important because it's just empty space. You're just supposed to see the characters. It's really good.
Yeah, and the whole reason they're running is they're trying to get to the computer so they can call Sonic. Except it kind of falls apart because when Rotor gets there, he goes, "Nicole, send word to Sonic."
Mm-hmm.
And then you remember that Nicole is like a sentient being, like basically like a person who presumably can see everything that's happening in Freedom HQ, and yet still needed to be told.
Well, I mean, that depends if she's there.
Well, okay, she's everywhere. Isn't that the whole point?
Well, no, because she can't. She's not in every spot hearing every single thing that happens. She has like her central little character, and that moves from place to place, which is consistent throughout the story. Because like later when they go to the Death Egg, obviously that's way later, but they're like, "All right, Nicole, teleport yourself into the handheld," and then whenever stuff goes down, they're like, "Hey, did you download yourself back into Freedom HQ?" So like she has like her brain, but she can be anywhere, but she's not just like listening into everything.
So here's the better question then. What's Nicole doing right now?
Nicole is doing stuff at the city.
Yeah, but like what?
What do you mean what? What is she doing all day? I don't know.
Well, exactly.
Yeah, so what you're asking is, why is she not guarding A, the base, or B, the city? She could be in one or the other.
I'm not... Okay, no, but what I'm saying is, we clearly see the city doesn't need her constant direct attention to keep functioning. So what... So what's she doing?
She's just looking around.
Why is she? Oh, she's just going for a fucking walk while we're under attack from another dimension?
Probably.
Thanks, Nicole. Mina was right about you. Jesus Christ.
Hey, we'll get to
it. But yeah, they get the call, and Sonic's like, "Oh, well, I got a juice and jam," as my Saturday AM counterpart would say. And they're like,
well, real quick, I do like that it was all a ploy, because Sally is supposed to be going for it. And then she gets stopped, and it's like, oh no, she got stopped.
Yeah, and then Rotor,
which is cool. And also, Fiona calls Sally, or Fiona calls Sonic Sally's boy toy, and I think that is fucking hilarious.
That's really funny.
Like,
yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, oh, geez, yeah, I forgot these comics went there sometimes.
The 2000.
Yeah, oh yeah, some of the ads I saw in this were very 2000s. They were like, I saw like Dark Knight popsicles at the end of one of them. It's like, but I don't know if the Dark Knight was really the movie used to sell popsicles, but what do I know?
It's Batman, so that's why.
It is, but it's also a man gets his face cut off in that movie.
It was the 2000s. They didn't care.
Yeah. No. Shadow the Hedgehog had only come out, what, like 7 years prior? No.
Exactly.
No, 3 years prior. I'm thinking of SA1. Jeez. Fake fan, I know. But anyway, then Dimitri shows up, and they basically have like kind of a standoff with the Chaotix. and Vector goes, I'm beginning to think sending Sonic back was a bad idea. Which is fun. And Dimitri's got this big like praying mantis robot that he's on. I'm only just kind of now realizing it looks fucking awesome.
Well, it's got like 2 like guns in the back.
Yeah, it's great.
Pretty cool.
But yeah. And then Sonic shows up. It's great because he's literally like bathed in light as he like shows up, and he like kicks in the door. And then Scourge comes in. Actually, I just realized that it's kind of paralleled because Sonic like kicks in the door and you see his foot, and then Scourge kicks in, you see his foot, and then he goes, and I quote, "Attention to all the scrubs of this zone. The king has arrived. Respect."
No, he's fucking a goober. Which, by the way, I want you to realize that means he just stood back there the entire time while he was waiting for Sonic to show up.
I've never thought about that.
She said, "Sorry, hun, but you need to speed up your grand entrance." Meaning, again, he was literally just standing there until Sonic showed up, so he could do his big moment to be like, "Whoa, it's me, Scourge. I'm fucking awesome."
Yeah, that's also it's just like, yeah, Scourge, that's how people talk, you know?
Yeah. And it is awesome. So
it's great. It's great. But
it's cringe and awesome. Which, by the way, it's also just very good paneling where so you have, like you said, you have the parallel, but also Sonic's panel, he is stepping out of the panel, and it's like, oh, Sonic's here, so that makes him feel really like big. But then you have Scourge, and he steps into a full page, which sells that he is a bigger threat, which is awesome. That's really, really good paneling. So
it is great. Yeah. But yeah, I just love the way Scourge talks. He's just like
everything he says is 10 out of 10. Like he oozes charisma.
Yeah. But yeah, so we get into Archie Sonic the Hedgehog number 190, Duality. Where at first it's framed like him and like Sonic and Scourge are just like having a conversation. But then they start fighting each other. And Scourge explains. So Scourge comes in and he's like so he's wearing a crown, and he's like, and they I think they refer to him as like, they refer to him as like Your Highness, or they refer to Fiona at the very least as like Her Highness or whatever.
Yeah.
And so Scourge explains while he's beating up Sonic. He's like, hey, you said that like we're basically the same, right? And it's like, and then I got to thinking, well, if you're like the biggest hero on your world, why don't I go and like be the biggest villain on my world and like conquer it? And so that's what I did. I conquered the world in like 2 days. It was awesome.
Well, and also being a king to him is like more respectable and cool and like distinct from just like, oh, you're just like some hero of like your planet. Cool. People like you. I'm like in charge.
Yeah. The line is like people, what's the line? It's such a good line. Fuck. Maybe
we'll
says
it's something in like 2 issues. So
yeah, it's a really good line.
But speaking of really good lines, I really love the line, that's King Scourge now, Sonic. Ah, so now you're officially a royal pain.
It's a good line. Yeah, and so yeah, so the two teams line up, and this could maybe be me being like a pretentious asshole and reading too much into it. But the shots of the two teams, Scourge takes up like as much space as his team on the page. Whereas when the Freedom Fighters line up, like Sonic is on like he's in the front, obviously, but he's on pretty much equal footing with everyone. And I don't know, maybe that's symbolic of something.
I mean, we've been talking about how all the paneling does it, so that's definitely intentional, I would say.
Yeah. And then Rotor is a stupid nerd with a broken neck, so he doesn't get to fight. But which, to be fair, did Rotor ever do that much fighting? Like,
he used to make giant guns until he decided he never did that. So
yeah. I'll make some guns again later, though.
Yeah, we'll be fine. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and then the two teams fight, and it works out because now that Boomer's part robot, him and Bunny like team up, or not team up. They face off. And similarly, Amy and Fiona fight. Like everyone kind of trades partners throughout the fight, but at the start of this, everyone kind of just goes up against their opposite, and it works out because again, the ones who don't have opposites, they have people who work fighting against them.
Yeah, and they have some really good lines. Like I love Miles being like, "Ugh, you're a big loser," and Tails is like, "Who are you to judge? I mean, aside from me."
Yeah.
And then I love Fiona's because like all of them have like something interesting to talk about. Of like, oh, you've discarded your magical heritage. Oh, you killed my dad. It's like, oh, you want to be robotic. It's like, yeah, I want to claw my way out of obscurity. And of course, Bunny doesn't like be robotic. And then Amy's just like, dude, you like betrayed everyone today. Go with what you know.
Yeah. Well, but also it raises so many questions. Yeah, it's good. Fiona just revels in it, Yeah. Like it's so interesting. And it's unfortunate that we don't really get to see much of like. Well, I say it's unfortunate, but also like it's kind of good that we don't get to see like the darker side of what a relationship like Scourge and Fiona would ultimately become. Yeah. But in terms of like character work, it's unfortunate that we don't see too much of like just them.
Well, we get some insights into it when he threatens her pretty fucking harshly soon. So
well, okay, look, I haven't read this in a while, so I'll take your word for it. But
no, I mean in this issue.
In this, does he threaten her in this issue?
Yeah, or she's like, hey, you almost got thrown back in there, and she tries to give him his crown. He grabs the crown out of her hand, she flinches, and he's like, you do not want to be sent back in there with me. And then all the others like get really scared.
Oh, okay. Well, never mind. Forget that thing I just said. But point is, Fiona seems to really like being a bad guy.
Oh yeah.
And but the thing that confused me, so Miles goes, yeah, you've ignored your magical heritage, and you follow that, you follow Sonic like a stupid person. And my question is, does that mean on anti-Moebius, Miles also is like the chosen one?
It either means he's the chosen one or just like he has some magical thing, I would guess. Maybe he's like destined to like, I don't know, consume a bunch of chaos power, and he's looking into that. Because I mean, it's not like he uses any magical powers in these fights, which I think is a missed opportunity. That would have been really cool. But obviously they want to get like all these, like if they do that, then it's like, oh, then you have to like have all these other characters have different things, and they want to get through it really fast. I still think it's a missed opportunity, but I would guess it's just more so he is more aware of those things and more interested in them. Because he also like, even though he's literally the same age as Tails, he like talks all proper and stuff. So like even when I read him, like I know some people imagine him with like a Tails voice, so him being like, "You gave up your heritage," and it's like, dude, you're like 5.
I imagine him as kind of like a little like proper British boy.
Yeah, that's what I hear in my head. Yeah,
maybe he uses magic power to grow that wicked hair.
That would be awesome.
Yeah. Oh, I will say also, if they were to give him magic powers, then the problem is like, then he's they work very hard in this to like, and they even say it like when Bunny goes to fight Alicia, she's like, oh, you know, you seem to be like a big gun, like wasting your time on me. So they do a lot to like make sure everyone's like threat levels are pretty like evened out. And if you give Miles magic powers, then all of a sudden he's like an alpha level threat.
For sure.
So that way you have to, but this way he can just fight Tails. And then there's a really cute moment with Sonic and Sally where they're back to back, and then like Sally like jumps over him as he spin dashes, and the two of them hit their opposites. And Sally's like, "Oh, it's good that, that you're here because we needed you." And he goes, "Oh, like always." She's like, "Oh, like always." And it's just and like the expressions in this panel are great. The way she's like messing with her hair is great. Like
Sonic like moving his nose across. Like Flynn does a really good job of like, even though Sonic and Sally aren't a couple, they act like a couple, which is cool.
Yeah.
Which is obviously there so that you can build up to when they do get back together, and to sell that they are friends first, before that.
Yes.
Also, this is a callback to issue 24 or it's like issue 24 or 23 when they fought these guys, and the plan was, oh, we can't beat them because we're fighting each other like the way we're supposed to, like we're fighting our equals, so let's switch partners. And I like that Sonic and Sally both individually come to that conclusion first, and they don't even have to say anything.
Yeah. Basically what we're saying is a hashtag Sonally for life. But
yes,
anyway, and we got back to the New Megapolis, where the big praying mantis Nazi is he's like, look, this is stupid. He basically says that because like and because Julie Sue comes out and she's like, oh, you're trying to like play a saint, but like, you sold out our people to Dr. Eggman. And then he goes, our families have been squabbling over who started what for hundreds of years, and frankly, I'm tired of it.
Yeah.
Like even Dimitri's tired of the Knuckles comic lore.
Oh yeah, well, like his big thing during this whole section is just him being like, all right, we're going to play it smooth, and we're going to get out of here. But I'm in charge.
Yeah. And basically, Vector's like, look, man, I get it that you feel bad about what happened to them, but they're dickheads. Like, they chose to work for Eggman. Let's just punch them. And Knuckles is like, okay. And just oh yeah, okay, I remember this page. Yeah, because he takes the thing from Scourge or from Fiona, and all the suppression squad, which is what the evil freedom fighters are called now, are like, whoa, oh jeez, like
which by the way, he ripped out Patch's eye, which is crazy.
Because I remember I actually had a note earlier on where I was like, man, why is like it's really strategically unwise for Patch to like fight with that eye patch on. And it's like, oh god, like
no, because later he says, I remember when it was just for show.
Yeah, he does say that. It's like, holy shit.
Which is good, by the way, because they don't show too much of like, because Scourge is going to have a lot of moments where he's like, I took over my planet, I did all these things, and we don't see it because obviously it's already done, and they probably don't want to show like all that stuff. So you do show that through these guys, and the idea of like something they can get away with is like, okay, but it's like, oh, he beat them into submission. It's like, all right, whatever. But it's like, oh, he ripped someone's eye out. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Like that makes it feel more real, Yeah,
it's like, well, and it's also like, because that's the thing. It's also like Scourge, like because Scourge, again, he's so over the top. He's always like, oh, hey, scrubs, like he feels very like try-hardy, and then like something like that comes in, it's like, oh my god, like
it's like for all we know, he could be lying, and it's like, oh, he's not.
But yeah, and then basically Nicole's like, Rotor, no offense, but like you're kind of just like a big target right now. So could you
Yeah.
like leave? And he's like, okay. And then we get a sweet scene where similar to how Sonic and Sally did it. Bunny is like, all right, Antoine, you and I need to switch switch opponents. And he's like, no, I'm like, Patch is mine. And Bunny thinks that it's because he wants revenge for what happened with his father. And it's a cute scene at first where he's like, no, like, look, he took a lot from me and I couldn't have him take you too. And again, very cute, but also, you really think Bunny can't take Patch? It's Patch, my guy. Like like your wife has robot parts. She could like lay him out in one punch. I assure you.
It's like, Antoine, swords don't do anything. I'm sorry.
Yeah. It's meant to be cute. I'm just being a dick about it. But yeah, and then Sonic, like, there's a scene that's interesting because like Antoine and Bunny get taken by evil people, and Sonic just comes in, like, pinballs off of like 3 of them and like knocks them down. And it's like, how many of you actually need to be here? Like, no, okay, that actually sets up something interesting. We'll see later.
Because Scourge is here.
Yeah, well, because Scourge is here now, and then later when like both teams of freedom fighters try to group up on Scourge can just fight all of them.
Yeah.
So I guess that's a good point. Like,
yeah, it's like, why do we need Sonic here? Well, because Sonic is here.
Yeah. Yeah. And then then Sonic knocks Scourge on his ass, and he goes, "Ah, fuck,
ah, fuck." Which again, 2000s comic. That's crazy.
It's great. Well, it's not like he actually says it.
Well, you're supposed to fill in the blanket that it's either like, ah, shit, or ah, fuck, or ah, I don't know, my ass. Like,
well, but if you're like 7 reading this, you'd be like, arg, darn, like,
darn. That's true.
Yeah.
I also really think it's cute that Tails grabs Amy's hammer for her.
Oh, that is cute. He shouldn't be able to lift that, though. I don't like that.
It's not Thor's hammer.
Okay, but it should be heavy.
Well, it's magic.
I guess. I don't know. I just like the idea, like, you think Amy, and I think this has like basically been like confirmed in like recent stuff, but like Amy's hammer actually weighs like a ton. She's just really strong.
Well, yeah, so that's the difference in pre-boot, because that is true in like reboot, that's true in X, that's true in the games. Amy has super strength, which is part of the joke. In the comics, they just always establish that the hammer is what's special. So basically, it's just like she has a lightsaber and she's just good at using it.
Yeah, but the hammer comes from her. It's because she absorbed the magic ring.
Yeah, so it's magic.
Well, but she's magic because she's the one generating the hammer.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that, like, oh, you can't, like, that doesn't mean she has magic strength. That means that hammer is a magic thing she can summon that is really strong.
But would that not imply that she needs to be really strong to use it?
No, if I can summon a lightsaber, the lightsaber still does lightsaber things.
Okay, but the lightsaber, yes, because the lightsaber is like a plasma beam that can like cut through things. The hammer, it's a blunt object.
Yeah,
a hammer is only as good as your ability to swing it.
It's a hammer so strong it can launch the Iron King, who is invulnerable.
Which would imply that the person using it is also strong. Because if you're a baby, you can't use a hammer. If a baby tries to hit something with a hammer, they're just gonna go like, eh. Or they probably can't even lift it.
Yes, Silver Ace, if you can at least lift the hammer. They all have super strength. Tails can fly with his tails.
Yeah, Tails doesn't have super strength, though.
He has above average human strength.
Okay, but so then shouldn't it be implied that like
he can hold a hammer?
Okay. Anyway.
I like that it's like we have Endgame, Frontiers, and can Tails lift a hammer? Those are our two Civil War moments.
I'm just saying, like, if you look at the expression on his face, it looks like he's like, "Oh, here you go, Amy." Where, like, at the very least, it should be like, "Oh, fuck!" Like. Anyway, point being, we cut back to New Megapolis, where they just, like you said, they just ripped this fucking robot's arms off. Like Mighty rips one off, and Vector is like gnawing through the other one.
Yeah.
And then the kids break out, and the Leondar retreats. And Dimitri, and he, like, Knuckles is like, dude, Dimitri, what are you doing? Like, you're not even a general, you're a scientist. He's like, yes, you're right,
dude,
I'm not a general.
Big nerd.
Yeah, he's like, you're right, I'm not a general. So it's almost like if I were here, then Eggman, the big evil guy we all hate, it's almost like he would be less successful with me here or something.
And then
Anyway,
Snorkel
bye.
is like, wait, what?
Yeah.
And then I love that Vector's like, well, if I was a brain in a robot head in a bubble, I guess I'd go crazy too.
Well, but it's not even like that's not even that crazy of a plan. It's
No,
a
I
perfectly
think
sensible
no,
plan.
the joke is just that they're all so stupid.
Oh.
Because Dimitri says it's a shame you didn't inherit my brother's intellect.
Oh yeah, but yeah, but so that's fun, and then so you know, Dimitri,
they're like Nazi Satan. He's good.
yeah, let's see, it's like you know, he is still a Nazi though.
Indeed.
But yeah, but so then we get to another really cool page of them all fighting, like Sonic and Scourge are like midair combat over the central terminal. And then basically Sally's like, okay, I have a plan. We need to run away.
Yeah.
And Sonic's like, but I don't want to run away. And he's like, they're like, look, just we're fucked. Like, just get out. And so there's a bit where there's also a great bit where Sonic, he's going out and he has like his hand on the door handle. And so it implies he's gonna close the door behind him. Which I just think is really funny when you're making like your like hasty retreat that like that's the pose. It's just a very funny pose.
It's very well. Sonic's just pissed the whole time, even then when they run back in the next page and Sally's like, "Oh, we had an invasion." You look over to Sonic, he's like, "This fucking bitch." He's so mad.
But then,
oh, by the way, so sorry, we have to quote Scourge every line he says. He goes, so Scourge has won this battle, right? And he's leaning back. And he's just like, "What's the matter, big man? We played too rough," which is so funny.
It's so funny. Also, what I find interesting is that literally as soon as they run away, the Chaotix show up. So it's like they probably could have won if they just stayed for like 30 more seconds.
Yeah, just go back in there. I've thought of that too, and I think what's funny though is that it just means they just all instantly die because then Scourge goes, "Oh, okay, well I guess I just got to go super now."
Oh yeah, I guess he would do that.
Yeah, you just go, "Oh, they're here. All right, fine. I just do my plan B."
Yeah. Audience, if you want to know what Ian is talking about, tune in next episode. But
yeah, sorry, spoilers. But I mean, obviously, like I always also try to think like if I were Sally, I wouldn't be like, "Hey guys, you just got back from your mission. You want to help us like try to do another attack without Bunny?"
Well, and also,
yeah,
the Freedom Fighters are pretty fucked up. Like Bunny is like leaning on Antoine, which like, okay, now that I think about it, what are Bunny's robot parts made of? Because if she's leaning on Antoine and her parts are just made of like normal metal, she'd weigh like 1,000 pounds.
Because they all have super strength. What do you not understand?
Okay, you're telling me Antoine has super strength?
Yes, they all
No. Antoine does not have super strength.
Hold on, let me clarify what I mean when I say super strength. You know how in My Hero Academia, Bakugo doesn't have super strength, but Bakugo can get slammed through a fucking wall and he's fine because they all have super strength.
Okay, can Bakugo lift like a car, which is about as much as Bunny would weigh?
No, but he can almost certainly withstand being thrown into a car. So it's the same thing. They're all super.
Antoine is not being thrown into Bunny.
They're all superhuman. That's the point.
Yeah, I'd buy they're all peak human physiology. But what I'm saying is, if Bunny's robot parts are just like fucking iron or whatever, and she's like, "Oh, hey, babe, can I lean on you?" But Antoine should fall the fuck over.
Dude, if that's my wife, I'm working out every day so I can hold her in my arms and be like, "Whoa, I'm."
Okay, I'm saying there's no amount of working out that you can do.
You know what? That's my headcanon.
God damn it, Ian. Anyway.
And then Sonic's like, "Dude, I'm gonna kill those guys. They stole my clubhouse."
It's like that. Anyway, Sonic the Hedgehog number 191. Metal and Metal, part 1. Yep. The opening page is so good because Pat just opens the door and Metal Sonic is just floating there. And he's like, "Scourge, I think it's for you." And it's interesting because Metal Sonic doesn't talk here, which he will very shortly. But Robotnik just talks through him. And so he's like, "Oh, well," and so, you know, Scourge is like, and so basically Robotnik's like, "Oh, you're not Sonic. Okay, I guess I'll go deal with him." And Scourge is like, "Oh, no, you're good, man. I'll just come conquer your parts of the planet later." And Robotnik's like, "What the fuck do you say?"
Yeah. And then Scourge is like, "Oh, shit." And then I love, by the way, I think literally the next time we see Scourge, he's getting like his face slammed into a wall.
Oh, yeah. It's great. But so then Sonic and Knuckles are pleading to the Acorn Council, like, "Hey, can we go back and like try and like, you know, get the Freedom HQ back?" And they're like, "No,
They said, no, this is democracy. You don't get to do anything good.
Which, like, I mean, no, I was gonna make another thing about Tails' mom. I can't keep doing this. But,
the way she said nay. Oh no, she says yay. Actually,
yeah. Well, she says yay because the thing is, like, the vote is like, do we leave Freedom HQ alone for right now? And so, everyone's like yay except for Chuck and Rotor.
Yeah.
Which, like, whatever you say, Mrs. Brower.
Yeah, whatever you say, whatever you say, Mrs. Brower. Just saying. I'm just helping you out.
We are the worst. But anyway, yeah, the council does the one thing they do in this comic, which is tell the main characters they can't do things.
Yep.
And then Sonic's like, well, fuck them. I'm gonna go do it anyway.
I'm gonna do it anyway, dude. I didn't listen to monarchy, and I'm not gonna listen to democracy. You kidding?
Yeah. But I will. So, and Sonic's plan is basically like, hey, Knuckles, you and me, I bet we could take them all. Which, like, honestly, if Boomer weren't there, probably. Boomer makes things a little sketchy on that front, though.
Just because of his long range.
Yeah, because he's like a robot man. He's got like blasts and stuff. Because I would fully believe that if the plan was just like, okay, Knuckles, I'll take Scourge, you take everyone else. Like,
oh yeah, he'd be fine. Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, even with Boomer there, I bet Knuckles could do it. But regardless. But then Knuckles is like, nah, I'm not gonna do that. And basically the idea we set up here is that Knuckles is like self-confidence is shaken. He's like, whenever I do what I think is right, shit goes wrong. Whenever I do shit other people think is right, shit goes wrong. I don't know what to fucking do, man. Like, and Sonic's like, oh, okay, I'll just leave him be for a second.
Yeah.
He's like, I am clearly not the best at comforting people, so I'll just let him.
Yeah. Well, and it's really. I mean, it's really sad how it's done too, because like he's crying. He like goes to like hit Sonic or whatever, and then yeah, of course, him just being like, it's like, yeah, you need to do what's right in your heart. And he's like, yeah, and that's why my dad's dead. And Sonic's like, oh, oopsie poopsie.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, it's really sad. Knuckles has some really good stuff in this section, but
yeah. But so then Sonic rolls up and we see Scourge getting his clock cleaned by Metal Sonic. And so Sonic goes in, he's like, all right, hey, can we have a truce while we, fight Metal Sonic? And he's like, no, I'll beat both of you up. And it's great because he calls Scourge Other Faker,
which is great.
That's pretty good. Then we cut back to Knuckles, who's just sulking on a park bench. And basically he says what I kind of laid up for. He's like, and he yells at Julie Sue. He's like, I suck and people are dead because of me and I don't know what to do. And everything's awful. And basically Julie Sue is like, hey, get your shit together, man. Like she's like, basically she like just doesn't have patience for him, like throwing himself a pity party. And she's like, look, a lot of people were affected by this. Like, it's not your fault. Just like, you need to deal with this and stop running away.
Yeah. And then he's like, well, you know what? I'm going to run away. Fuck you.
Yeah, exactly.
And he goes, oh yeah, well, fuck you. And then she's like, damn it.
Yeah. It's a very nice, it's a very real moment. Like, and it's 100% how I believe, like, because like, a lot of like characters they like, or like, if you're writing a character's love interest, they have them be like, oh babe, like, oh, it's okay. But she's like, no, get your shit together. Like, it's not your fault.
Well, and it's cool too because like, she like clearly is sympathetic, but I like that it's like, it's also a bad way of going about it, too, because like that's her personality matches Knuckles because they are both so intense, which leads to them kind of being good at ribbing each other and like really caring for each other. But then that's also like they've never really had like this kind of an argument before. So her way of like trying to encourage Knuckles is like, Knuckles, just fucking get your shit together. Stop running away from me. Talk to me about it. Like, stop just being like, there's nothing you can do. Of course you can do something, but the way she says it, it makes Knuckles say like, oh yeah, you're saying like I'm a dumb idiot. And she's like, no, you dumb idiot.
Yeah.
So no, it's really good and it feels very real too.
Yeah. No, it's really good. And then he runs away and she's like, God damn it, like I feel bad. But then we get back to Sonic and he's fighting with the Scourge and Metal. I mean, it's a cool fight. Not much to say until we get to a point where Sonic gets knocked down. And we mirror the scene from way back at the beginning of Flynn's run, where he's like, hey, you had your whole thing about like, oh, if you just try to, a little harder to be good, you could be like a cool hero like me. But that goes both ways. If you just like, stop being such a little bitch baby, you could be like me. And we could, his thing is like, we could conquer the stupid little planet and we can rock the entire multiverse as twin unstoppable kings. And But we don't get to really see Sonic's response because Metal Sonic comes in and cuts him off.
Yes.
I will say I don't know. It's interesting because it's one of those things where it's like Sonic. Obviously, Sonic's not going to take him up on it, but there's genuinely like at first here Sonic goes like, "Oh, geez," he goes like, "I," and then later on Scourge is like, "So what about my offer?" And Sonic goes like, "I'm a little busy right now." And then ultimately again he doesn't do it. But
yeah, I think it mostly works better in the context of way later down the line, where when Scourge first said like they were similar, Sonic like dismissed him outright. And then now when he says they're similar, it just kind of like, because he's getting his ass kicked, things are going well. So he's just like, that sounds shitty. And he's just, it kind of like stuns him for a bit. But then he's like, yeah, of course not. Like, that's stupid. Because obviously Sonic isn't going to think that he's going to turn evil, but he doesn't like it. Like, it seems like it's planting the seed in his mind that he is comparable in some way. And then he's like, whatever. And then finally, when we get to the character's lowest moment, what does he call back to? He calls back to this, and he doesn't have a response anymore. So
yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. I guess I didn't think of it from that perspective of like, it's one of those things where it's like, in theory, Sonic, you're entirely capable of everything of every monstrous thing Scourge has done. So okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, and of course, like even in this, it's just like a minor thing, and then he's like, yeah, that's fucking stupid, and then it never comes up again, So Sonic's it's just kind of a moment, and then after that, it also helps too that Sonic is trying to like get his point across, and he's the one who feels like he has the high ground now, because he's like, dude, here's all the things I told you to be. Do that, you stupid idiot. And then he's kicking his ass while being like, well, no, I surpassed you. So, hey, once again, why don't you be like me? And he's like, oh, shit.
Yeah.
He's like, no, fuck you.
But then so Knuckles goes and he's sulking on the Master Emerald. His pose is adorable. He's just like sitting there. It's amazing. Archimedes is trying to cheer him up, and Charmy's like, "Oh, what's wrong with Knuckles?" And he's like, "Oh, well, yeah, he's dealing with a lot. Like he's got a lot of thoughts to figure out or whatever." And Charmy, it's actually a scene I quite like where Charmy goes, "Okay, sometimes my thoughts get kind of mixed up too, but if I get all angry about it, I'll just get distracted. So I just tell myself there will always be more flowers." And it's one of those things where it's where at first you want to be like, oh, geez, Charmy. But then he's like, it's like, actually, there's something like, what's the word I'm looking for? Not prophetic. Not profound. Thank you. There's something profound in that. It turns out being like pretty, and Knuckles even says that was surprisingly relevant.
Yeah, because the idea is basically just like, Knuckles, you need to doesn't need to be focusing on this big picture stuff when there's something really beautiful right in front of him, which is his girlfriend. And obviously he needs to hear that they have to tell him to go do it. Like, he already figures it out. He's like, yeah, I'm not mad at her. I just need to talk to her. And he's like, all right, go ahead, which is good because you still want it to be his choice.
Yeah. And so, then he pops up in the portal, walks through, and him and Julie Sue see each other, and they're like, hey, I'm sorry. Like, can we, talk? Like, we're doing something right now, but like, can we talk later? And she's like, yeah, I'm sorry too. And like, they smile, and it's cute. Yeah. And then Julie Sue goes like, hey, should we go after Sonic? And he's like, and Knuckles, knowing that he's fighting his evil self along with his entire crew, goes like, nah, I bet Sonic's got this. It's like, what?
And I like the idea of like, you know what? Sonic and Knuckles, they've come a long way. Instantly cut to Sonic getting his ass kicked.
Yeah. But yeah. And then, so like the line, it goes from him going, nah, knowing him, he's got everything under control. And then it cuts to Sonic going, this is starting to get out of hand.
Well, I also like that the way he's fighting is he's just like holding Metal Sonic's head back like he's a child. Like, get away, stop.
Yeah, it's good. And then who shows up but Metal Scourge, which is something Robotnik whipped up because, he wanted it to be a 2v2.
Because he thought it would be cool. Yeah.
But then, where do we see but Sonic Chronicles?
The Dark Brotherhood, my favorite.
Yeah. It's there's something like there's some kind of cruel irony about there being an Archie Sonic like promotion for Sonic Chronicles. But
actually it's really interesting. So sometimes, so you know how they start doing the another time, another place thing, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like, okay, it's like this is like a game story, but instead of like trying to figure out like how the heck does this fix into our timeline, it just happened somewhere, sometime. So maybe it's in our dimension, maybe it's later in the future, or maybe it's in another world. Originally, they were going to actually tie this into the main continuity, and there's a version of this where Julie Sue is here, and it was just supposed to be like, oh yeah, like dark, Dark Brotherhood happened, but it is canon to the universe. But they scrapped that at like the last minute, I think, which is interesting, which makes it even more prophetic.
Well, yeah, because also it's like, I feel like, how do you have Julie Sue and Shade like exist together in the same space? Like,
indeed.
But yeah, and so it's just they're like, oh, people are stealing the Chaos Emerald, so we'll start a trap. We'll set a trap, and then the Nocturnists show up and they take the Emerald and they take Knuckles. And Tails is like, oh fuck, I gotta go get the others. The narrator's like, what's happening here? Find out in Sonic Chronicles: The Dark Brotherhood on Nintendo DS.
Which is not one of the most important things to ever happen to the Sonic franchise.
Yep. You ever played Sonic Chronicles, Dan?
Yeah, I played it when it came out.
You like it?
I remember liking it at the time, but everything I've seen of it since makes me believe it was probably because I was a dumb child.
It's one of those things for me where it's like I love everything about this game except playing it. Which is, I mean, that's a lot of Sonic games actually, but this one it's just like it's one of those things where it's like I wouldn't call the gameplay loop bad necessarily, but it's one of those things where it's like I have no desire to ever play this ever again, which I feel like speaks some volumes about it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
But yeah. Anyway, Archie Sonic the Hedgehog number 192. This cover is dope. It's the one they used for the cover of the trade paperback.
Yeah, and is this the one we're stopping at, if I remember correctly?
We can. I was gonna have a stop at 194, and then
that's fine by me because we're going through these pretty quick. So
yeah, because Hedgehog Havoc is 195 through 197.
Okay.
Yeah. So
yeah, fine by me.
But yeah, and so then there's not much to say about it. The Sonics and the Metal Sonics are. Oh my god! I just realized when Scourge gets knocked down by Metal Scourge, his crown falls off, and he makes a special point to catch his crown as he falls, as he's eating shit on the ground.
It's so good.
It's good. But yeah, and then Eggman, he's just fucking around because Dimitri comes in and he's like, "Hey, you whipped up that Metal Scourge really quick. Could you make some reinforcements for the Dark Egg Legion?" And he's like, "No. And if you question me again, I'll blow you the fuck up."
And then and he's like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah. And he's like, all right, I gotta get some popcorn. This is great. And it's interesting. So a couple arcs ago, we had Eggman say all right, I'm done treating this like it's some kind of game. This is war now. But then here we have him just being like treating it like a game. Yeah. But I almost wonder if this is meant to be Flynn planting the seeds of Eggman becoming more unhinged.
Oh, it is. It's absolutely intentional. Because that's why Dimitri is like, dude, just make more shit. And he's like, fuck you.
Well, when do we get the line? I think it's next volume where we get the line of these Metal Sonics would be a lot more effective if you stopped making them one at a time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, the thing that always drives Eggman in these things is his ego, and in this case, it's his him getting ahead of himself. Because think about it, he's like, oh, I'll help you with Enerjack. And it's like, okay, the city's down. You could kill them all right now. He's like, no. I have to make a giant fuck off laser with it. So I'll be back. And then because he does that, Enerjack escapes and destroys his shit. So now he's even more worse off than he was. And he's like, okay, I'm going to build a Metal Sonic and I'm just going to go to his house and fight him.
Yeah.
So, and then he's like, oh shit, I gotta make a Metal Sonic. And then it's like, okay, so I guess Eggman's all wacky now. But then what the scene shows you is he's still very deadly, where he's like, nah, dude, I planted bombs in all of you, which I didn't tell you. And, this is because you wanted this power and I can kill you any moment. So leave me to do my thing. I'm going to kill Sonic. And then we know also that he's not really playing around because he gets mad that they lose. So,
oh yeah.
Because he expects there's more and more stuff.
Yeah.
Which is cool.
It is cool. Also, this panel of him in shadow with his teeth all bright and the glasses, it's great.
Well, and even just the idea of Dimitri tries to threaten him, grab his arm, which that could he could use his tentacles and strangle him or do whatever. And the fact that Robotnik has no fear and he just grabs his tentacle, he's like, oh no, you don't understand what's going on, Yeah,
it's good stuff. But yeah, and then the whole time, so basically Sonic's like, hey, could you call in your team because we're not doing great here. And Scourge is like, no, I got this. I don't need anyone's help. And then we get a bit where Miles is like, hey, we could kill him. Oh my god, it's the fucking SpongeBob meme. It's
which one?
the meme where it's Mr. Krabs looking at Squidward and SpongeBob is just outside the window, and Mr. Krabs points and goes, "Let's kill him."
How do we tell him?
It's just like because he's absolutely just looking out there, and he's like, "Hey, if we had Sonic on our side, plus all of us, plus the Freedom Fighters, it'd be very easy for us to tip the scales of this in our favor." And so they're like, and we kind of leave it on that for now. And then we get back to the Egg Dome, where Dimitri's like, "Yeah, Leonda, bad news. There's bombs in all of us." But yeah, and so then there's just a bit where he's like, "Look, I've got it," and Leonda's like, "God damn it!" Like, and he's like, "Hey, look, I got everything under control. Don't worry, I'll figure it out."
Well, and it's important too because Leonda's like, "This is your fault, idiot. You went to Eggman." He's like, "You bitch, you went to Eggman." And then he's like, and then she's like, "Oh, you jerk!" And then and he's the thing that makes Dimitri great is that he thinks like, "Oh, I'm doing all these great things. I'm gonna like help my people." But he still did this all out of like pride, out of like, I still need to be in charge. I'm going to get like a new body. I'm going to lead our people. But then at the end of the day, he still, he still thinks like he has one up on Eggman. And Eggman's like, "Dude, I just put bombs in you, you idiot. Yeah. You can't do anything." And then I do really like that, he like gets really mad at Leonda. But then in the final panel, he actually puts his like little tentacle hand on her head, like to like pat her on the head. It's like, "No, you're part of my family. Like, I'm going to figure it out, So again, it shows like all their like conflicting feelings. Of like that, like one, it's like the Echidna's always like infighting and like trying to sell each other out for power. But then like Dimitri, unlike Leonda, he actually does care and he really does want to try to make this work. But his greed is what has put them in this situation. So
yeah, well, and then so then we get an interesting bit where we cut back to Sonic and Scourge and they're back to back against the Metal Sonics, and their quills are like overlapping each other. It doesn't look comfortable. Like I don't know how to describe it. It's just like it's like two Lego pieces like snapping together, but like I don't like it.
No, I get you.
But then Sonic's like, "Dude, just call your team in." He's like, "Fine, come help me beat up Metal Sonic and Metal Scourge." And then it's like and Scourge's like, "Hey, so about that whole like being evil thing, like what do you say?" And he's like, "No, fuck you."
He's like, "All right."
Like, I do really like the bit where at the end where Scourge is like, "Yeah, you run away. You can't nobody take down King Scourge." And Fiona goes, "Yeah, you tell him, baby."
Tell him, baby. And then she's like also like scratching his chin or whatever.
Yeah, so. I love how like all of this Scourge being a massive dork is apparently like a major turn on for Fiona. But anyway,
that's very funny.
But yeah, so Sonic goes back to the council, and Elias is like, "Dude, you had one job. You had one fucking job, Sonic."
Well, I also like that he's like, "Dude, I personally don't care if you do whatever you want, but like you can't like not listen to us." And I love that Sonic's just like, "Dude, I'll do whatever I want. Fuck you, idiot, stupid idiot." And then he's like, "Man, Sally, why'd you ever date this guy?" And he's like, "You know what? Him being an asshole is charming." And then you look back at Fiona.
Yep. But yeah, it's fun. Yeah, so that is a fun line where he's like, "How did you date him for so long?" He's like, look at him." But
yeah, look at him.
And then Sonic has a fucking demented grin on the last page where they explain their plan. They're like, "Look, you are gonna go over to Moebius, which is what we're calling anti-Moebius now, or Moebius or whatever, and you're gonna find like some secret weapon that can help us beat Scourge." He's like, "All right, cool." What they expect to find, we'll get into that in a bit. But then we get into a really good story drawn by John Gray called Father and Son, where Scourge somehow gets into New Mobitropolis. He gets into Sonic's home. He like sneaks in through a window. And my notes back to back are, how did Scourge get in the dome? And then my next note is, anyway, cool story, so shut up, me.
Well, I was gonna say they really do need to like put the dome up at night. I know, like, here's the thing, right? I know you're freaking animal people and you like the weather, but like, guys, just put the dome up at night.
I thought the dome was up like 24/7.
No, they turn it off constantly because obviously you want like wind and like rain and just like weather.
Wait, Nicole can't simulate that?
Wind?
Yeah.
I guess she could put giant fans everywhere.
No, well, no, like, or you could have like really tiny fans in the nanobots.
I guess so. I
If
don't
she
think.
could be like grass and dirt, I think she could figure out how to make wind.
But yeah, no, I mean, I think what really works with this though, because like obviously it's like, oh, let it go for a story. But I do really like that this actually is brought up later in the story when they're like, hey, Nicole's really bad at her job.
Yeah.
Well, I was just another example of like Nicole is literally not hearing every part of the city because I think she would hear that Scourge is yelling really really loudly. So
you'd think.
So again, she's not everywhere in the city. She has like her AI and she can move around the city basically.
Yeah, she's too busy with Sally, stargazing.
Stargazing, exactly.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Anyway.
But yeah, go ahead.
So Scourge, he sneaks in through a window, and I just realized Jules is sitting there like the disappointed dad who catches their kid sneaking in. He's just like, oh, hello there. Do you know what time it is, young man? Like, but so he sneaks in, and he sees Jules, and he's like, oh, what are you, like a metal Sonic? He's like, no, I'm Sonic's father. And it's just a great story where basically, the whole time Scourge is trying to like puff out his chest. He's like, look, I'm not afraid of you. And Scourge's like, oh yeah, well I conquered my whole planet, and like my dad was a dickhead, and like he ushered in like the supposed like era of peace.
And I killed him.
Yeah, and I killed, and like, but that all went to shit, and then I killed him. So yeah, you better be afraid of me. And he's like, what do you think? And again, Jules is just like, what do you think? Like, look, the fact that you feel like you have to sneak in here in the middle of the night to get a leg up on my son proves that like you kind of suck and you're a coward. Like,
yeah.
He even says like this world is full of great people willing to risk everything to make a better world. So that what that says to me is that your world is full of cowards. And so Scourge goes up to him in his face. He's like, oh, you think you're you think you're so tough? Well, I can smash bots real good. And he's like, dude, I was on the front lines of the Great War. If you want to go, let's fucking go.
Yeah.
And he like has this like bright light, but he like fucking goes Super Saiyan. Like,
yeah.
And Scourge like is so like awestruck by this that he literally just leaves crying.
Yeah.
It's
because
awesome.
he feels like pathetic.
Yeah, which he should. Anyone should in presence of Jules Hedgehog, to be fair.
Yeah.
But
then there's also the really other cool side because the story is called Father and Son. And one of the things Jules says, he's like, I know you don't care about your dad, but I know my son would be very upset if you killed me. And he goes, do you want that on your head too? Which I mean, basically just means, do you want that on your conscience? Because his whole thing is the whole point of Scourge's character is that he's a big blowhard who says all these big things. And so I like that it's like, oh yeah, like you say you're big and tough, sure, do it, kill another one of your father or whatever. That can just be another thing that weighs on your conscience. And then I like that Scourge says, he's like, it's just a bunch of empty words. You're no different from my old man after all. So what were the empty words? You can kind of decide or not. But I think the things that are empty words to him are him saying like that he loves his son and that like my son would do anything for me. And he just feels like, nah, fuck you. Like you don't care, or like you don't care about me, obviously. And it's just another thing where it ties back into Scourge's father. And this idea of like Scourge is all about like attention and about, those types of things, which is just really, really cool. And it just makes Scourge a way more complex character, not in the sense that he has depth to be sympathized with because he, killed his dad. And it seems like the worst thing his dad do was just like ignore him. But it kind of shows like the deep, like the whole point of Scourge is that he thinks he's big and grand. But at the end of the day, he is very insecure about everything in his life. And I like the implication of that being that he also is a little like the tears might also come from the idea of being made to feel like, yeah, he's a bad person when he, so it's really cool.
Yeah. And then Bernie comes out and it's like, hey, I thought I heard something. And were you talking to someone? And Jules goes, nobody. Yeah, which is a great. Who were you talking to? Were you talking to King Scourge, this great hero? No, I was talking to nobody. It's so good.
And then the visual storytelling is great because one of the things they consistently use are these circles that look like kind of like hypnosis, and they consistently like swirl around Scourge and his pages. And so what happens is in the, I think it's, let's see, page 1, 2, 3, 4, Jules with the brush of his hand, the circles, like the spirals, they dissipate. So like Scourge is kind of like, again, his thing that he keeps like making himself feel really big is kind of falling apart. Then he gets on top of Jules to like try to scare him, and the panel starts ripping off, because then you see the swirls behind it, like it's trying to overtake it. And then when Jules stands up, it snaps back into place because he's taken over the scene. And then he shoots out his big bright lights that like represent like his power and his energy. But then in the final scene, as Scourge is like walking away and saying all these things of like, oh, you know, you're just empty words. Obviously, we know he's trying to project, and what's around the scene, it's all those swirls again. So it's really cool.
Yeah, it's great.
It's probably like one of the best stories in all of Preboot.
It's really good. But yeah, then we get into Archie Sonic the Hedgehog number 193, Other Side. And so basically,
by the way, I really like that this just implies that Sonic and Bernie are really, 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 really heavy sleepers.
Oh yeah, Scourge was being very loud, wasn't he? But yeah, my first note on this. So, and I'll talk about it when we get there. But yeah, so they're fixing up the warp portals, and they're like, all right, we're gonna send you to Moebius. Again, to find what is my question. Like, what do they think they're going to find that would be like, you know, Scourge's Achilles heel? Like, am I crazy here? Like,
oh no, I mean, they just tell them like, you're just trying to find anything, because the idea is that they invaded our world, so let's go to their world and see if we can find a weakness of Scourge or something we can use. Which, to be fair, they find like the Doctor, and they find like Rosie, and they also find a secret passage back to our world, you know, which allows Sonic to like come in and get a little sneak attack in and stuff, and then they can send Scourge back. So there are useful things for them being there, but the plan is just to find anything that can be useful to stop Scourge, basically.
That's fair. But yeah, and so they send Sonic and Amy, and there's a bit that I can imagine if you're an Amy fan, you don't care much for, where Amy, where he's like, Sonic's like, hey, I thought this was a solo mission, and Sally goes like, oh, well, Amy's been dying for a little more time with you, and he goes, you're cruel.
Which I think is funny, because I like the idea that that Sally is nice enough though to know that Amy likes Sonic, is like, yeah, I'll set her up on a little date.
Yeah. Well, because she also knows like this child is no real romantic threat to me.
Yeah.
But yeah. But so they go through the portal, and they're immediately ambushed by Omega, which but it's a blue Omega with peace signs on it. Yeah. Who we find out is Bunny inside. Because Dr. Kintobor, who's like the Robotnik of Moebius, who's dressed like classic Eggman and is like really skinny. Like, my guy, like, eat a sandwich. I'm not trying to body shame you, but like, you look weird. You look like one of those inflatable arm guys at the car shop. Like,
that's the perfect way to put it. I like it.
But anyway, he runs up. He's like, hey, no, Bunny, like, stop it. Like, they're cool. And I realized that for the first time upon reading this, that we see this Omega before we see the actual Omega.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
That's pretty cool though.
Yeah, it's kind of fun. It's like a nice twist.
Yeah. Well, and I also like to think that when Sonic and Amy see the real Omega, that part of them goes like, "Oh shit, is Bunny in there?" Like, yeah. Because I'm trying to think I don't know if Sonic ever sees Omega in Preboot, but Amy definitely
he doesn't.
Does. But yeah, we'll get to that story another time though. But yeah, and then like Kintobor is like, all right, let's go talk. And then back in on Moebius, Miles shows up outside, and the Freedom Fighters, like, all the remaining ones, like, mobilized to go like beat the shit out of him, I guess, because all four of them show up. And he's like, look, I was sent to bomb your city, but as you can see, I have the bombs right here, and I'm not planting them. And then he just like tosses them on the ground. It's like, dude, bro, maybe be a little more careful with the bombs.
Yeah.
Also, just something interesting. Miles and Tails are two like distinct shades of like Tails is like more orange while Miles is more yellow. That's just interesting. I just like that.
Oh yeah, you're right.
But yeah, basically, Miles is like, look, how about we team up and we take down Scourge because he sucks. Well, although what's interesting is this entire thing is contingent on, hey, Sonic and Scourge are like equally matched. So if like all of us go onto Sonic's side, we can definitely beat Scourge. And then they go, okay, we'll go attack without Sonic. And it's like, why didn't you wait?
Well, to be fair, that's because Miles has to come back and explain why he didn't bomb the city. So
sure, but like, would it not be better to go like, oh, to have Miles, maybe have them go like, oh, maybe Miles was captured. Because
Oh yeah.
Like, what's Scourge gonna do? Like, oh, they captured Miles. Like, all right, we all need to go. Like, no, he's gonna be like, oh, fuck that idiot.
Yeah.
Yes.
At the very least, I appreciate that they just rely on tropes, which is that Sally's like, well, Sonic always shows up because that's what the plot demands. So I think it'll work.
That's fair.
Which she literally says. She goes, Sonic always shows up or whatever when we need him. Oh yeah, all right. Sonic isn't here, but we can count on him to show up when we need him. And she was right. So
yeah, fair enough. But yeah, so then we cut back to Moebius in the Grand Forest as opposed to the Great Forest, where we find out that Robotnik. Okay, so Robotnik, or Kintobor, I should say, did build a dome that does allow air to flow through it and weather and all that, to the point where Amy says, wow, I can't even see the field. And he goes, good, you're not supposed to. You're fucking slacking, Nicole.
I know. She needs to get on it, and that's why we exiled her.
And so basically, Kintobor is like, they stormed my tower, they used my zone portal, everything sucked. And this is actually where we get the reveal about Bunny. Basically find out that she got the same disease Maria got, actually, which is NIDs or NIDS.
Yeah, NIDS.
I always assumed it was like AIDS, but it seems like the S is part of the acronym. So
yeah,
regardless, she got NIDS. And so he built her the suit to like control that, and also like to allow her to like protect herself. And what's great is Sonic goes like, hey, so could you build us like more of those so we could go fight Scourge? And Kintobor goes like, oh no, I can never build an army. It's like, okay, well, enjoy having your fucking planet taken over, my guy, because those are your options.
These pacifists.
God, but anyway, and he's like, okay, well, there is one thing that could help you. Rosie the Rascal. Dun dun dun.
Dun, dun, dun.
Which is interesting. So the whole point of this version of Amy is that like, oh well, Amy loves Sonic, so Rosie hates Scourge. But like, they only do that sometimes. Like, it's not like, oh, Kintobor, he's like dumb because Robotnik is smart. It's like, so only some of the traits get inverted, which is weird. But anyway, point being, yeah.
Well,
so
I mean, and she also doesn't hate Scourge, so
it's weird.
Yeah,
but
it's just, because it's just, I mean, it's still that she loves Scourge. It's just that it's in a why. I mean, basically, she just has all like the worst versions of like Amy's traits, where it's like, come back here, Sonic, I'll hit you with my hammer. But now it's like in a really, really like fucked up, crazy way. So Kintobor's wrong that she hates Scourge, but she is definitely not nice to him. So
yeah. But anyway, we just see some flashbacks of like Scourge taking over the world. He beats up Beret Knuckles. Is Beret Knuckles only in the one issue? I've never seen him.
Yeah, he's in like that one. I think he gets like maybe mentioned in another one, but yeah, he's in like one issue in the like the early 20s or the late 40s.
Yeah. But anyway, then Sonic and Amy and Bunny, or what is she? Her name's like Buns or something, right?
Yeah. Oh, by the way, it's also cool that they do show like a city burning, because again, we don't see anything on Moebius too much because we just have the castle and the safe haven. So it's good, like characters who were there are saying like, no, he did actually do stuff. Because if Scourge says it, like you shouldn't really believe him as far as he's concerned, you know. So it's good to have like confirmation, like no, he did like mess us up.
Certainly.
Oh, and by the way, another example, they're like, hey, Nicole, can you confirm that like they're telling the truth? She goes, well, yeah, one sec. Yes. So again, she has to like actually like move around basically, or like look into things.
It'd be great if like the dial-up sound played.
She just goes, all right.
Yeah. But yeah. Also, I wrote in my notes, because they say like, again, like Bunny's suit is not meant to be a weapon. It's meant to be like a healing suit. And it's like, that's a very evil looking healing suit.
Well, you don't like blue?
That's not the problem. But
which, by the way, it is just a very cute idea of like Dr. Robotnik puts animals into robots, and he did the same, but it's to protect an animal, so that's cool.
Yes, I agree. But yeah, so then they go into the castle, and they run into Rosie, where she's like, oh well, I was so much younger than Scourge, so he ignored me when I was little. So I used the magic ring to make myself older. And Amy goes, "That's like what I did," but when she says it sounds creepy. It's like, Amy, honey, I hate to break it to you, it's still kind of creepy when you did it. But yeah, and so
Indeed.
Yeah, but then Rosie's like, all right, well, but then Sonic Unleashed. So it's just the opening scene of Sonic Unleashed. I don't need to fucking explain. He takes the emeralds. He's Super Sonic. He takes the emeralds out of him. He turns into a fucking werehog, and then he lands. The only difference is there's no chip.
Yeah, go play the game. Bye.
Yeah, it is interesting though because it's interesting to see pre-boot Werehog because we associate him so much with reboot.
Oh yeah, you're right.
But yeah. Anyway, Sonic the Hedgehog number 194. Crossworld Conflict. Also, I gotta say, Rosie the Rascal, her hammer is an interesting design.
It's cool.
It's now the real question is, could Tails lift this one?
Yeah.
I'm willing to say yes because it looks more aerodynamic.
I like it though. It looks awesome.
But yeah. But so she's like swinging and fighting, and Sonic's like, okay, wait, but I'm not Scourge, so you don't need to smash me. And she's like, well, you're close enough. And then Amy goes like, okay, but like, I'm not a Sonic. And she goes, and I quote, "You're breathing. That's good enough for me."
And she's like, no.
It's probably for the best this character doesn't show up again. like she's fun here. I imagine this bit would get very old.
Oh yeah,
very
it would
quickly.
get very. Yeah, it would feel very one note. Thankfully, it's all. I mean, we won't get to talk about it this week. But it's all for one giant bit, so I think it works too because it's not like, oh, Rosie's here just because we want to do an evil Amy. It's like, well, there's a big giant bit that we're building to of let's put every single Hedgehog variant in the entire series in one place, so it all leads to something.
Yep. But yeah. So then, let me look at my notes. So Miles is rushing back, and the Freedom Fighters are seemingly like on his tail, like he's retreating. And Scourge is like, oh wow, he must have punked them real good. And then they're like, oh nope, it's, shit's fucked. We're about to fight Scourge. Back to Moebius. A lot of fighting. Amy, no, this isn't. Oh no, this isn't where it happens. But so Sonic goes back through the portal, and they're like, all right, let's go. We'll cover you. And he goes back through. And everyone is attacking Scourge and Fiona. And Scourge goes, and I quote, "Fucking traitors!"
He's just soloing all of them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Fiona's there too. She's taking Patch.
There you go. Someone had to.
Yeah. But yeah, like you said, like again, it's like, why didn't you just wait for Sonic? But no, I mean, it is it very much reflects like the beginning of the book where Sonic again like knocks down 3 members of the suppression squad like super easily. Or it's like, yeah, well, that's like also I get, maybe this, I guess this further proves that like, yeah, if Sonic and Knuckles had just gone there, like Knuckles could have soloed the entire suppression squad because yeah, Boomer's not doing much here. But
to be fair, Scourge is a lot more like pointed and vicious than Sonic.
That's fair. But also, there's this whole thing that they keep going back to. So Sonic goes, he's like, all right, I gotta, get Scourge and force him back through the portal. Fiona goes to stop him. And there's this interesting thing that keeps coming up where people go like, Fiona, you're not even from there. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And ultimately, she's like, look, everyone betrays me and I can't trust anyone or rely on anyone. And Sonic goes, well, except Scourge, right?
Yeah.
And I think what they're trying to get at here is like, basically Fiona is like, this is just some desperate plea for like someone to love her. And
well,
Scourge,
she has dependency issues, but she wants to feign it like she doesn't need anyone.
Yeah. Right.
So her whole thing is she betrays everyone else and she does her own thing, and it's all for me. But also, like, you like latch onto Scourge, who's like literally like verbally abusive to you and like doesn't treat you very well, and you're still with him, right? And it's just like, yeah, and that really messes with her because she doesn't want the idea of what does she literally tell Tails? She said you can't rely on anybody, but she seems to basically latch on to Scourge. So
certainly.
By the way, I need to point out, because I always like pointing out when Sonic is a complete and utter asshole. So I need to point out, he shows up, he sees all of his friends getting their ass kicked for 2 pages, and then he turns around, leans against a chair, and goes, "Hey, Nicole, what's going on?"
Yeah. It is great. I also really like the pose he's doing when he fights Fiona and he like leaps onto the terminal. I always like when they give him like Spider-Man poses.
Oh yeah, no, he looks really good.
But yeah. Okay, and then Ian, I'll give you this. This is a point against my whole the hammer is magic and no one but Amy should be able to lift it thing. It does get broken into many pieces by Rosie the Rascal.
Yeah, and then obviously she can just teleport it back into normal. So
yeah. Wait, okay. Someone has definitely asked this question, and Ian Flynn has probably answered it. But could Amy be like a hammer brother and just throw them like really fast?
Just like chuck it.
Yeah, like a hammer brother. You know, just like throwing like a bunch of them.
I would say
really funny. Well, wait, no, we see it in Sonic X because she throws the hammer and they get stuck there, and Eggman goes like, well, I got your hammer up here, and then she like spawns another one. So presumably, the question then becomes how quick of succession can she do that?
I always took it as she can spawn it back to her like a Keyblade.
Was that what it was? Well, I think in X it's distinctly like a second one because I always assumed it was the one hammer.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. Yeah, and this it seems like it's just one hammer.
But yeah. Anyway, Amy like pokes her head back through the portal. It's like, fuck, Sonic, you gotta help us out here, man. Just get Scourge through the portal. And then when Scourge isn't paying attention, Sonic just sucker punches him.
Well, I also love the joke too. It's like, yo, Scourge, miss me? No.
Yeah.
Yeah. And apparently he had more to say too.
Yeah. Well, I think it was more like, no. Yeah, and then they Boomer blasts the two of them, and Miles is just like, well, time to get rid of these. And he just chucks both of them through the portal like into Amy. And so they go get chucked back into Moebius, and Scourge is like, those motherfuckers. Oh god, I wish he had. What he actually says is, "Oh, they're dead. When I get my hands on them, I'm gonna like whatever." I wish it had just been those beef. That would have been amazing.
Those fuckers.
But anyway, and then Scourge has like this kind of adorable expression when he sees Rosie, where he goes, "Oh, please no." Like I said before, I always read Scourge kind of like he's like the Werehog with that kind of like scratchy voice. I like to think for this one, he just back to like a purely normal, like, "Oh, please no."
He goes into a falsetto.
Oh, please no. Yeah. But yeah, and then we cut to Moebius Mercia, the Neverlake, where we see none other than Robbo the Hedge and his wife Marianne. You get it? 'Cause it's like it's funny. And their son's name is Little John too, which is extra funny. But also, while Rob is on here, before we get to the big reveal, we really need to talk about how fucking weird it is that the guy that Amy is obsessed with and in love with and wants to marry looks exactly like her cousin. Like, is one shade of blue away from her cousin. Like, it's fucking weird, right?
Maybe Shadow's a weird hedgehog. Maybe that's just what they look like. To be fair, Sonic's dad and mom are just him, but with funny hairs.
Yeah, but Amy's pink. So they definitely come in different colors.
No. I mean, like their facial structure.
Oh, sure. But like, yeah. I get. Okay. My point is, okay. All I'm saying is when I read the Sonic Archives for the first time.
It is funny though.
when I read the Sonic Archives for the first time and I got to an issue with Robbo the Hedge, I thought it was just like Sonic like going incognito.
Oh yeah.
And then it's like he's like, hoity toity toity, I'm Robbo the Hedge. I have a bow and arrow. Like,
and it's like, oh, that's just Sonic being silly.
Yeah, no, it took me a minute, but I think it was like a Knuckles issue or something. It doesn't matter. Point is.
Yeah, it is.
But who shows up? Who is he talking to? But my boy! He's here! He's finally here! It's been so long!
They did his little fern. They made his little fern head really small.
It's really small. Also, he's kind of shiny. Notice he's kind of shiny.
He's shiny.
Like I think they're trying to make it look like his fur is like actually like silver, like it like shimmers a bit.
Yeah, which is kind of cool.
It is cool. It's actually really interesting to see because like this is presumably Tracy Yardley's first time like drawing. Well, maybe probably not his first time, but you know what I mean, like drawing silver.
Yeah.
Like you said, like his weed hair is a bit small. His the like cyan on his like ankle bracelets is very like it's like just blue. That's interesting. But we will see more of Silver next episode because right now we need to finish off with Sleepless. Which is just a story about Snively being like, God, I fucking hate it here. And then he, goes on Discord and he's like, hey, you up? And this one of the other egg bosses is like, yeah. That's gonna get paid off later. Yeah, that's what happens. But yeah, so we'll see more of that later. It's drawn by John Gray, so it looks great. But
yeah. By the way, Snively is also superhuman because Eggman throws a wrench at him and he's just like, ugh, whatever.
I thought he dodged it.
Oh yeah, maybe he dodged it. That's kind of funny too. I like that.
I don't know which is more superhuman, to be honest. But anyway, yeah, that's Dark Mirror. Pretty good. Ian, you can see why I wanted to split this in two because we are an hour and a half in.
Yeah, that's a lot. I mean, I would say back, yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, so come back next time for Hedgehog Havoc. But yeah, you were saying.
I was just gonna say overall, like I really do like the Scourge arc. I think its best material is to come. And I would say like I think the best material of what we've read has been a lot of the stuff with like Knuckles and then kind of like the B stories with like Scourge and Jules.
The Jules story is like the best thing here, hands down.
Yeah. And I just think like it's really cool that like Scourge is almost kind of like the character of this story. Because he has a lot of like his faults kind of like consistently being built up and up and up and up. Obviously he doesn't inspire any loyalty. He's like secretly sort of like a coward in some ways. He thrives off of people giving him attention because that's what he wants. And if you don't give him that attention, if you fight back, if you don't play his game of getting mad, then he kind of loses all his power. And that kind of is going to be reflected when we get to the finale. But as far as like the buildup goes, I would say like the weakest two issues are probably like the ones where it's Amy and Sonic going into the other world. Not even that they're bad, but they're just like they don't have that emotional core of like Knuckles as the B story. So they're just kind of more just like, yeah, it's pretty fun. I like this adventure, but it's kind of missing that. Like overall, I quite like the section.
Yeah, no, it's good. Yeah. So this is actually okay. I'm trying to think. The IDW episode we recorded like 3 months ago is coming out this next week, and then 2 more weeks are going to go by, and then this one's going to come out. So I think this might be the last Sonic Comic Chaos for the year.
Oh, cool.
Probably won't be the last time you guys hear from us this year because we're definitely going to talk about Sonic 3 at some point. I'm actually going to talk about Ian. I'm going to talk about Ian behind his back. I'm going to talk to Ian about that when we log off. But yeah, I don't know. Fuck. Point is, this will probably be the last episode of Sonic Comic Chaos for the year. So thanks for another awesome year.
Yeah, it's always a joy to do this. Thanks for always having me.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for being here. Yep. No one else will talk to me about Sonic, so But yeah. Anyway, thank you all for listening. I should say, like I said in the journal thing, there's a pinned comment below with some organizations that do good work. If you have anything to chip in, it's holiday season of giving. If you can't, obviously, money's tight. I get it, but just give it a look if you can. But yeah, awesome. Until next time, take care, everyone. Bye.